I'd like to call together this Special Education and Alternative Ed Subcommittee meeting. Can you please call the roll?
Mr. Anya?
Here.
Mr. Costa? Mr. Corey?
Here.
Will you please rise for Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
The United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Recognize his t-shirt.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. I want to thank everybody for your indulgence. Last week we had to cancel, so I'm glad that we all are able to make it today. There's nobody here for citizen input, I don't believe. The first item on the agenda is the discussion and update related to the special education department. So Mrs. Ponce or Mr. Loesch, whoever wants to go.
Sure. So, end of last year, we finished off the year with our tiered focus monitoring review. We thought the review went pretty well considering the challenges that were presented by the pandemic, especially since we finished off the previous year virtually and holding meetings in that format. Our feedback from the state overall, I think, was pretty positive. We had only 9 partially implemented indicators and then 0 that were not implemented at all. And I believe there was about 27 that were fully. We've already created a plan to address those, which was accompanied in the attached documents. We from there went straight into ESY, having a full in-person program. Kids did well. We definitely had some staffing challenges, but we were able to get through those, and really the teamwork of the special education staff really shined through all summer in order to make sure that kids had their needs met. But we had a safe and really sustainable program. With that, we also offered a pretty high level of professional development throughout the summer months between several different reading interventions through Wilson, through Just Words, as well as Landmark through our LIPS program. So we've definitely increased the capacity throughout the district. And we're also be able to bring in Jessica Minahan prior to the start of school, which we also just recently had in for our professional development day. Also, moving in through the school year and looking at kind of our numbers, we definitely want to make sure we're making our inclusion services a priority and really kind of hopefully making some shifts throughout the district. We've had a lot of ongoing internal discussions within the department of how we can kind of make some of these adjustments. And I know Durfee really had a successful pilot over the summer in looking to move some students to a less restrictive environment, but yet still providing them with an extremely high level of support on a day-to-day basis. And so far from the feedback on that pilot, it sounds like it's going well throughout. In addition, in the springtime, we're going to really look to be holding some meetings with schools and having more discussion on how we can make more opportunities for inclusion throughout the district and start to move our numbers in that direction as they were provided here. In addition with that, our JLMC group is going to be a focus on their priorities as well. They are a group who has wanted to push that and move it forward. And I think, since we've been able to increase our interventions and level of support throughout schools, it's going to be realistic. I do think the challenges of this school year and for our full in-person return are going to be present. I think we're going to be dealing with a lot of challenging behavior and a lot of high level of needs throughout the beginning of the year. But we're really hoping for a second half to really stabilize, being able to see a lot of academic progress moving forward, and then really being able to move those discussions around inclusion as well. We have seen a much higher increase in anticipated needs in terms of services. We attribute this to several different options. One that really, we did have a significant amount of kids at home last year, in which that really kind of hid a lot of issues that students may or may not have been experiencing within their homes. So we've seen a high increase in terms of students being, 1, qualifying for services, and then 2, just a general need within RTI in schools to support kids who are going through that process as well. So our folks are definitely working very hard out there. With that, we did recently get approved for the American Recovery Grant, in which we did write in an occupational therapist to help with that need. We're seeing students with a lot of sensory needs, a lot of kids who weren't in school last year, weren't exposed to classrooms of 25 students. We've got students who haven't had a typical school year in almost 2 years. And we're definitely seeing a lot of that manifesting in the classroom. So we want to be able to kind of help our folks provide that RTI service, get them used to being in those environments and getting the supports in place that they need in the classroom so that we can keep them in the least restrictive environment. That grant that also was recently approved as well is going to have a consulting psychiatrist as a part of it that will look to have support the district for up to a 2-year period. And then we're going to reevaluate and look at kind of, how that has benefited the district at that point, determine whether or not that's something we incorporate into the budget long term. As well as we've increased instructional technology for our students with severe disabilities across the board over the past 2 years, and I think we'll almost be, for our ASD sub-separate classrooms and community-based classrooms, we'll almost be at a 1-to-1 for iPads for those students. We still have a few classrooms who are sharing sets right now, but we're moving in that direction because we've noticed that they just really are able to access the curriculum at a higher level when they have a touch screen instead of a keyboard, and as well as they're utilizing it on a consistent basis for communication purposes as well. We've also really put a large amount of those funds aside for professional development so we can continue to grow the skill sets of our staff members, as well as stipend purposes for them to also develop our own internal professional development. As we know, we have a lot of internal talent in this district, and we need to maximize it as much as possible. We had both grants, the 262 and 240 were approved in recent months, which had the accompanying documents of what really those did cover, and make sure that we had all those pieces on board. This fall, we did onboard 3 new special education supervisors. I think we were extremely lucky in the folks who we did onboard hit the ground running right out of the gate. She's been absolutely incredible so far. And last but not least, we onboarded Christina Michaud from Framingham Public Schools, who's come in to support our elementary classrooms, who had a significant background in developing an autism spectrum disorder program over there for our students, and has really brought a nice skill set and lens to our district with a thoughtful approach to student support. So with that, it's definitely, we're anticipating a challenging year, but I think we've got the pieces in play to make sure we're supporting the district and meeting students' needs.
Mr. Corey.
Thank you, Michael. That was a very good breakdown. Being such a big ship, SPED always is going to require vigilance and monitoring and adjustment along the way. I'm pleased with so many of the adjustments made so far up to date. A couple of questions. When you say you want to increase the inclusion, okay, so could you give me a strategy? Is that to develop their literacy somewhat more?
Yep, I think one piece is really making sure that we're getting to kids early. As part of the new dyslexia guidelines, one of the main pieces is really to address dyslexia for the majority of students within the RTI process, and for the 5% that have really the significant portion, those are we're looking at for special education. If we can really look to reduce that and get kids early intervention, we're not going to have to really provide them as many services in the long run. And I think also they're going to have much more positive school experiences. I think one of the most frustrating things to any student is going throughout the grade levels and not learning how to read, right? Because we all know that's a critical skill for any kid, and if we're not doing that appropriately, then we're not doing our jobs and making sure we can support them. I think also the other piece is we need to look at our current sub-separate programming and have discussions with schools on how we can increase those opportunities for those students to be around their typical peers more just within their day, whether that's electives, whether that's after-school programming, and just creating a more inclusive environment for our students. And I think that's been a lot of parent feedback we've received over time, and it's time to really start having those conversations and start thinking outside the box and how we can make those.
So much of their human behavior is based on their environment. So if we can provide healthy environments like that,
Exactly.
But also to try to create a balance, between those kids on special needs, IEPs, and versus the other kids, so there has to be a delicate balance.
Without a doubt. And I think we're looking at, inclusion is really a dual process, and that we want our students who aren't on IEPs to be used to being around folks with disabilities, so that they're having a well-rounded experience and having exposure to them, and having they're getting that peer feedback piece and that modeling piece from both sides. But you've said it perfectly: is that it's balance, right? because there's not one model that fits every single child. Every kid is different, every kid has different needs, and I think we just need to make sure that balance is in place so that we can do that.
Just quickly, are the special ed numbers up across the district?
I think we've seen a slight raise since the beginning of the year. We've had a significant amount of move-ins, especially at Durfee. We've seen a large number of kids move in since the beginning of the year. I think at the moment we're about 45, which is high compared to previous years. In terms of the past year and a half, especially for autism spectrum disorder, we've seen a significant amount of move-ins throughout the South Shore. Kids coming in from different districts who are here. And I think it's a combination of, one, we have really good programming, and we have a lot of parents who this is what they're drawn to. And then it's also just, we're a high needs area.
Sure.
So we're seeing a lot of kids on the spectrum.
Thanks for answering that. Just gives us an idea of where everything's headed to. And the last question briefly is, who's at the helm to provide RTI when it's needed? Is it the adjustment counselors or others?
No, it's a school-wide approach.
School-wide, all hands on deck?
Exactly. It has to be a combination of social emotional learning and academics at the same time to make sure we're meeting the full needs of the child. It's always going to be a multifaceted approach, because I think when we look at it, right, there's never things that aren't connected. It's always a marriage.
So that begs the question. I agree with that approach. School-wide, all hands on deck. I think that's great. But should we have professional development in that realm to prepare everybody in the school for the all hands on deck approach?
I think so. I think it's something that's been ongoing with schools throughout the years. We have several different schools who have been participating in the MTSS academies, so they're building their skill sets to know how to support students. And I think one of the things that we've done when we're rolling out our professional development, we're not limiting it just to special educators. We're wanting to make sure that we're reaching both realms of general and special ed, so that we're getting kids, and we're getting them early, and we're providing those supports in the general ed, so they're not necessarily having to go on special ed. So we're trying to make sure our professional development is diversified, and that we're not just focusing on one single group, so that we're able to really have that school-wide approach.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you. Just had a question on a request. I think you have it in here for inclusion in the JMLC, like you're having a plan. I wanted to have a meeting just for that purpose, but we've been backed up with not having them. Can we just pull out and come up with a plan to send to the committee, like a draft of where we're at with everything you just talked about, inclusion in both areas?
Sure.
Just so that we can all sort of just weigh in on it without having to have another meeting next month.
Yep.
To go over that. I just think it's an important issue that we all should get on the same page with as best we can, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Question on the consulting psychiatrist. What does that look like? Is that, I know
So-
we talked about it in the past, and
Yep.
I was told it couldn't happen, and then it's been years, but where are we at with?
So we wrote it into this grant for there to be a $50,000 retainer for both this school year and next. I think our biggest challenge at the moment is going to be able to find someone who is going to be able to do it. In the mental health field right now, folks are at capacity. We're seeing wait lists for kids just for regular counseling that are months and months long. I've reached out to a lot of our special education directors groups as well as urban groups to get recommendations to pursue for consulting psychiatrists. I'll say there haven't been a ton, but we're continuing the search to reach out to folks to get somebody who we know has some background and experience in consulting to schools, to make sure that we get the right person in place that has a skill set that's going to be appropriate for us.
Yeah, when you say consulting psychiatrist, do you mean just somebody that's going to consult, or somebody that's actually going to service kids?
It's going to be a combination of both. I did use the term consulting just as an overarching term for them, but it really is going to be on one, to help schools and work with specific students that are very challenging, but also then being able to be a direct support to students, especially in places like Stone, through our social emotional programs, and even really across the district.
Yeah, I agree with that. We've been going on with this for years, so it's frustrating when we can't get it done. Then we have money, so I would look at the locals, the Health First, other places, whatever, and then offer the number that, it's going to be beneficial to them, because we have the clientele. And if, in my opinion, if it takes that you do both years in one, like we need it so bad that If it costs more money, it costs more money.
Right.
And we'd have to do what we gotta do. So I'd like to see that sort of ramped up as quickly as possible. I'm sure the staff wants it as well. And you mentioned about the iPads for the ASD program, almost being one-to-one.
Yeah.
And I think you had mentioned this before, that the rationale for why the staff chose those versus others for the benefit of the children.
Yep.
I, for one, don't think we should be almost at one-to-one. We should just do it, like, spend the money that we have to come to us and say, we
Yeah.
need 100 iPads, let's just buy them. Like, it doesn't,
I think this last grant is gonna bring us to that point.
yeah, grants are no
Yep.
grants. We have the money.
Yep.
When I see that, it's sort of, in the old days, we'd have to go to GoFundMe and all this other stuff to get it. Now we have the resources,
yeah.
let's just, just pay it. And the only other question that I had, and you can answer this in the future, is we usually get an update on the Walker report from prior, like sort of where we're at with each step. I don't need it right now,
Yep.
but I think sending it out to the full committee, we had the list, some further along than others or whatever. I think an update like that would go well.
Sure.
Just to, and then we'll have meetings quarterly, but it'll just be running it real quick. So, any other questions? Anybody else have anything for the special ed?
We can include that as in the Friday update, the Walker report.
Okay,
Update.
yeah, perfect. So, whatever updates you can give us, and if that can't be done, in a couple of days, next week is fine as well. Thank you, Mr. Loesch. We're going to move right along to the Stone School update.
Okay, so I have not presented before this committee before, so I kind of took a global perspective,
Sounds good.
just to kind of make sure we're all up to speed. So the background of the school, we started in 2010. I've been there since 2011. The school opened in 2010 for middle school students. Over the years, we have slowly grown from 6 to 8 to a pre-K to 12 program, which is where we stand now. Our students come to us from all over the district and from out of district over the years. As our reputation has grown, we've gotten more and more out of district students into the program. They come to us because they're unable to be successful in their regular education setting, whatever that is. It could be a separate classroom in a regular school, but they're just not able to be successful. You want me to wait until you find?
No, I'm just, I'm
just
listening, but I'm just trying.
That's okay.
Which one is it?
We have
It's
a lot
this
of
one.
curriculum stuff,
It's
so.
the blue. It's the one with the blue.
Thank you, Deborah.
Oh,
Thank you,
it's on the
dear.
bottom, it's a little out of order than that.
Thank you.
The one right before that. There
Got
we
it,
go.
thanks.
Okay.
This one.
So our
I'll second
students generally come to us because the school that they're in is not able to meet their need for therapeutic supports. Most of our students, the vast majority of our students, have some level of trauma in their life and need to have some additional supports in developing coping strategies, having the opportunity to talk about what happened to them and learn to deal with it. All of our kids that come to us either have an active education plan and IEP, or we do have a couple that are on legal agreements with us and they are being evaluated for an initial IEP. So in a couple of situations, particularly this year, I think when we've got kids coming into school who have never been to school, never been to daycare, pre-K, or any of that, we have a couple of very young ones who are with us to be evaluated because they just couldn't be safe at their school. They weren't able to remain in their classroom. We have one that would never come into school. So we're able to provide that additional support and test them while they're with us. All of our testing was done, I made a mistake on this, was done by our school psychologist. We are blessed to have a full-time school psychologist. We now have a BCBA, so he is taking over some of those FBAs from the school psychologist. When the kids come in, if they're either there for a placement or for an evaluation, and those are two very different things. So if a student came from Boston, moved into Fall River, and they had an IEP for like the situation we were talking about earlier, and they have an IEP for a public day school, they would automatically come to us. If they're coming in for an evaluation or they're new to the district in a different school, but people can't quite figure out what's the best placement for them, they'll often come to us for an eval. So we will do the 45-day eval, sit down with the entire team, which includes parents, service providers, the school, the sending school, us, and make a decision as to what is the most appropriate placement for the child. And I would say, if I had to kind of guess, I would say it's probably about 70-30. We probably keep 70% of the kids, and 30% we feel are able to return to their school with additional supports. What our referral process looks like is that we do observations on kids, and sometimes we'll observe a few times and say, we don't think they need to come to us, but here's what the supports that we can provide. And sometimes we do that as well. So one of the things that I feel very strongly about is being able to move kids along. If they don't need to be with us, I don't think they should be with us. So I didn't realize the number was this high until I did the data yesterday, but since 2013 was the first year we transitioned a student to a less restrictive environment, and we've been able to move 49 students back to their school. I will say that one student we have gotten back. He was a student that was moved over the summer to a summer program. It was not a decision that we felt comfortable with. It's what his dad wanted to try, and so he is now back with us. That's the only student that's ever come back. We have graduated 4 students as well. We've just been a high school for 3 years. So our numbers are, this is a little confusing because the numbers don't seem to work out, but if you hang in there with me, they actually do. So we have a capacity in the building. We now have 12 classrooms. We opened up with 9. We've added 3 over the years since we've been in this building, over the past 4 years, that we've been in this building. And currently we have 12 classrooms. Each of those classrooms has a capacity of 7 students. So we have a capacity of 84 in the building. Right now we have 78 on our roster. Actually, as we speak, we now have 80 on our roster because we added 2 more. But we do have we have 7 openings now. The additional kids are after school program, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. So in our elementary school, we have a capacity of 21. We have 17 students, so we have 4 openings. We have 4 openings at the middle school level. We are full at the high school level. This is the 3rd time this year we have been full at the high school level. Whenever a student moves on, we seem to get another one. So at this point, that is full. Each of our classrooms is staffed with a special ed teacher and a paraprofessional. Each of our behavior therapists has 2 classrooms, so they split their time equally between 2 classrooms. So it's kind of a 2.5, to 7 ratio. All of our teachers are licensed and are responsible for planning and implementing lessons. That we follow the district curriculum, because I think it's very important if they're going to go back to in-district schools, they need to be able to step in and be right where their peers are. We do some accommodating, some modifying, but the kids are following the same curriculum. Our teachers write all of the students' individualized education plans and assure that the kids are receiving appropriate accommodations, and they support all of the mandates that are covered in their IEP. Teachers also serve as the link to parents regarding kids' academic needs. So if the students are having problems with some of their academics, they may reach out to the parent and provide some additional support for home or things like that. Our paraprofessionals are responsible for supporting whatever the teacher feels the needs are in the classroom. So sometimes that is taking a small reading group while the teacher has a small reading group. Sometimes it's taking the student for a walk because they're having behavioral difficulties, so they kind of take the lead of the teacher. One of the things we're most proud of at Stone is the kids don't seem to know who's who. They're not sure exactly who the teachers are, they just think we're all teachers. And that's fine with me. Our behavior therapists are either qualified as registered behavior technicians or are in the process of qualifying. They are responsible for planning and carrying out 2 social skills lessons a week for each of the classes, so that's 4 for each of them. Utilizing, we use the Choose Love and Second Step curriculums. They also write annual behavior intervention plans. We review those plans monthly and of course on an as-needed basis if the kids are struggling. So they take all of the information that is collected during the evaluation period and they write a behavior plan for that student. Often that behavior plan also comes with a safety plan for the student. They are required to meet a minimum of twice per week individually with the students on their caseload, although the majority of them meet with all of their students almost every day. That because we find that if we take a proactive stance, it's much better than if we take a reactive stance. Our BTs they do all of the communicating with parents. Well, I do too, but they do the bulk of the communicating with parents regarding social emotional needs, any behavioral issues, that kind of thing. Also, they plan and run weekly team meetings with their teams. Well, they're bi-weekly this year, but so they'll meet with the whole team, so the paraprofessionals, the teachers, the behavior therapists, everybody from the team will meet and discuss individual needs of students academically and socially and emotionally. The BTs do participate in weekly PLC meetings. They write all of their own lesson plans. They are required to turn in those lesson plans on a weekly basis, and they progress monitor how the students are doing with their lessons. And I already spoke about that. They're the point of contact for parents, but also for any crisis situation. We'll often start with a behavior therapist, and then if we need to pull in the school psychologist, we will do that as well. Finally, our staff this year, we have a new BCBA position, so he's able to start doing some of our FBAs, and he's been an enormous help already this year in kind of identifying some of the needs that Michael spoke about, of a lot of sensory needs coming into the school this year, things like that. And we have a school adjustment counselor position. Let's see. Oh, the BCBA is also, he does all of our RBT coordination. So he makes sure that everybody's on the right track, that they take their test when they're supposed to, they take their retest, they have to requalify every year, that they requalify, and he makes sure that that's all set. And he will eventually be our safety care trainer, which will be the new restraint and interventions program that we're using. Last year we started an after-school credit recovery program. It was a situation where I had 3 girls who were pregnant, and one was an 11th grader, 2 were 12th graders, and I was very concerned that they were not going to come back to school after they had the babies, which is exactly what happened. So it kind of just started informally. I asked permission, and they would bring the babies in, and we would teach and, watch the babies so that they could learn, they could do their work. 2 of the girls graduated last year, and 1 is back this year with her baby. So we asked if we could officially start an after-school credit recovery program specifically aimed at, new moms, to make sure that they get, that they're able to support their kids. And we were given permission, so this year we currently have 5 people. However, one of them is a male student who used to be ours and asked if he could come back because he had not been able to graduate. He left us to go to a different program. Mom moved, and anyway, so he came back. So even though we wrote the grant as for moms, if there's somebody that needs to come in and needs support, we will obviously take them. So finally, our priority areas for the year, the overriding goal that the staff wrote with us is to develop a vision of instructional excellence based on intentional, culturally responsive instructional practices for both academic and restorative social emotional learning. So I can tell you that what we're really, really focused on this year is really refining what instructional excellence looks like in a therapeutic day school and what we need to do to make sure that is happening. It has been a challenge. I've been an educator for more years than I'm willing to cop to, but it's a challenging year. It's been a difficult year, but I have to say that there's a lot of energy in the building for building this capacity. The other real big focus for us is obviously on attendance. That's always a big issue, but also on using restorative practices. We have been unofficially using restorative practices as opposed to, I am not a big believer in suspension. I don't think it helps very much. So 2 years ago, we started kind of tiptoeing into the restorative practice arena where we do different kinds of things. We work with students to come up with ways that they can, my mantra is kind of make sure the community goes back to the way it was before you did whatever it is that you did. And that is we've had a lot of success with that in some very surprising ways that we weren't anticipating. So this year we're doing a book study and we're actually working toward eliminating some of our more behavior management systems and moving toward a restorative process. Like I said, I am very concerned about attendance. It was a little disheartening. We watched our attendance improve and improve and improve, and then the pandemic came, and we went from having 90% daily attendance to last year it went down to 79, and that's a little disheartening, but we're working on it. And we went from 39% chronic absences to 54. Right now, our average daily attendance as of yesterday was 84.3%. Some of the things that we are doing is we always have made daily phone calls when parents are out. We started a new program that the kids and the staff are really enjoying. We've assigned a staff mentor to every child who has an attendance problem. So it's kind of their touch person. So that's the person who will be beyond an administrator calling mom, because that just seems, after a while, I think the kids just think it's nagging. That person will call and say things like, we really missed you, like we need you in school, you need to be in class. And that does seem to be making a difference. So we did a little bit of training, and every person who wants to participate is given one student to work with. We do weekly wellness meetings. Attendance is the primary focus. Lisa Sullivan is our school attendance officer. She comes in every week and meets with us. She's extremely proactive, so usually when we sit down and I say, well, listen, we need to work on, she's already done it. So we also have cumulative weekly incentives for attendance. We do a 4-week cycle with the big reward at the end being everybody with perfect attendance gets pizza, and then we start over again. We do a lot of home visits, lots and lots of parent contact, and like I said, we have ongoing contact with the school attendance officer. So that's kind of an overview. I'm sure you have questions, and I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, thank you, Mary Ellen. It's a great assessment. The Stone School, to me, is a gem in the system of our schools, public schools in Fall River, because before the Stone became what it is today and what you've helped it to develop into, it was so much out-of-district placement at such a high cost to our district. And so I really like the Stone School. I'm just wondering, how could we develop it even more into the future? And I'm thinking facility-wise, not as much as your staff and your programming sound excellent. In my visits to South Coast Collaborative School, I saw things like quiet rooms, and I saw other things like rooms where kids could be expressive in, expressive therapy.
Right.
That kind of thing, I wonder, is space-wise, infrastructure-wise, we don't have that at the Stone School.
Right. Well, it's funny that you say that, because we did when we started. Right. We had rooms that we just specifically designed as what I call mindfulness rooms, that had soft lighting and manipulatives and all of those kind of things. But as we've grown, we've had to take over some of that space for classroom space. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we definitely need to. I've kind of talked to Michael a little bit about our rooms are ginormous. They're huge.
Yeah, it's a nice
Right.
old classic building.
It is.
And my last visit there was pre-pandemic. However, when I was there, I was struck by how lively the atmosphere was and how
word.
wonderful the atmosphere was. No,
Thank you. I
there was a great
appreciate
vibe in the building, no
Yep.
doubt. You know, you guys got your work cut out for you, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's a special population, and I think the more therapeutics we can have in place,
Mm-hmm.
especially creative therapeutics like the drumming program, is that going there?
No,
Okay,
but
we gotta get
did-
that
No,
there.
we asked. I think
We gotta get the drumming program there. We gotta get like,
Our kids would
how about
love
music
that.
and the
Yep,
arts?
We do have, we have a full music program, a full arts program. We are very lucky with our music teacher. He walks around playing his guitar all day.
That's cool.
So we're really lucky with that.
I wish we had a kitchen where the kids could learn how to cook or something. Or, you
Yeah.
know, if we can do a partnership with either the high school or Diamond and get the kids some viable hands-on skills that could really talk to the other side of their brain.
Yep.
You know, that might be a great
Absolutely.
therapeutic skill for them to advance into the real world.
The new, is it CTE? This is all new to me. Person came over last week and met with us and seems to be very interested in, as time goes by and, you know, she kind of moves into her position, supporting some of those things for us, because we do a cooking elective and the kids love it. But I mean, we bought little fake
Yeah, that's okay.
stoves
That's
and
great.
stuff. But so I know that it would be very valuable.
So you can see how appealing it was
Yeah.
to them.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and there's
Absolutely.
growth right in
Right,
all of that,
right.
you know, and development.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I saw you start, when you started, you know, your tenure at the Stone many years ago, and wasn't it on Tucker Street or something like that?
It was on Globe. On
Yeah.
Globe, yes.
And on Globe Street.
Yep.
You know, and I've seen the way that you've developed it into what it is today, and I have nothing but praise for you, and thank
I
you.
appreciate
Thank you
that.
for your commitment to our district and your level of developed service for our district. Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate that.
I had a question on the psychologist,
Yep.
the caseload. Is the caseload similar to others? Like, I know that's a higher population of students, but is there equity across the district?
I will tell you that right now, I mean, she has got an enormous caseload of kids. But what I will also tell you is that if her caseload drops a little bit, she does offer her services to support in other places. So generally during the year, she'll do a few assessments at other places. If she's got the time and other people are a little short, but she does all of our reevals. She does all of our students need an FBA at some point. She has done all of that.
Yeah,
so.
I'm only asking as a
Yeah,
district more
yeah, yeah.
equity,
Yeah.
like is it?
Yeah,
So her caseload is not similar to her peers who are school psychologists, just because it is a different role in
Right.
supporting the public day
Right.
program, and that she does a lot of more direct care and services for students given the
Right.
environment.
Yeah.
And the majority of our other school psychologists really do much more of just the evaluations for their schools. We do have some who do provide a limited amount of direct at schools, but Ms. Gifford at Stone really is hands-on with the students on a day-to-day besides her testing duties that she does for them. I will say, also given the nature of our Stone students is that their evaluations at times do take a longer period of time due to willingness and stamina within the evaluation.
Yeah, I'd just be curious to see across the,
Yeah.
whatever we have, what do we have, 20, 10, 15, to see what it's like, because I've heard from other schools where the psychologist is like flat out, they can't do any other services, and then it might,
true.
logically, if we look at the numbers, say, well, maybe they can go over and pick up the burden or to help in whatever,
Right.
periodically. So I don't know what the numbers would show, but if you could get that to us. The BCBA position that you're talking about, is that the equivalent of a cluster coordinator? Is that what we call the cluster coordinator is the same position? Is that the?
Exactly, and that's one of the pieces we added on really to build the capacity of Stone along with the school adjustment counselor. I mean, as I will say to anyone hands down, I really do think Stone is the best public day throughout South Shore of Massachusetts, and I think these are two components that really have raised the level and ability to serve students throughout the school. I think also looking at the capacity question that Mr. Corey developed is that one, that is two of the things we're looking at spring projects for, and to relocate some office space into some of the classrooms and kind of make those a smaller room, still just as appropriate for students and what they need, but to build capacity and bring some of those mindfulness rooms back. And one of the other pieces in a long-term project we're looking at is that really evaluating if we want to keep K through 12 in the same building. If we want to keep K through 12 within the same school building. I think that's a conversation that we need to look at, just given the severity at times of behavior and some of the issues students at Stones are facing, of how appropriate it is to keep the entire spectrum of students within the same school building.
If Michael, Mr. Earlier asked, the BCBA's and the cluster coordinators, two separate positions.
The two separate positions are very similar. Sorry, they are very similar in functioning. We really determined that Stone needed the BCBA lens to focus on the behavioral piece for students.
But is it the equivalent of the cluster coordinator? Just you're calling it a BCBA? Is that?
They're very similar in nature. They do have a few different duties, especially BCBAs have a large consult caseload that they have to provide for IEP-wise. But as we know, they are one of the primary program supports throughout the
Yeah, I'm just looking at it for budget so that the rest of the committee knows we created X amount of cluster coordinators. Is this one of them?
Yes.
Or is this
Yep.
a separate? So when we say we support a cluster coordinator program, maybe we call it cluster coordinator / BCBA, so the rest of the members of the committee know. You remember when we added those 6 positions and people criticized us for hiring administrators? This, like with truth in advertising, would tell us what it is. Mr. Corey has another question, I believe.
I just wanted to, on my comments, to have those extra therapeutics in place at the Stone. I would ask the superintendent to always keep your eyes on that prize, and whatever monies we can use in the future, moving forward well into the future, to help develop those kinds of therapeutics for Stone as it comes along. If the opportunities there, I say get it, because it's really very helpful for this population. So that I just wanted to add that and request it of the superintendent. Thank you. I yield.
My last comment on it is not, I don't really have a question on it. It's just that it's something that I don't really understand it, how the students get to the day school IEP, to the Stone. Is there the continuum of services like at a different place? So I'm always confused about that a little. I know we don't have programming at the younger grades that would sort of bridge the gap to get to the Stone. And I always have felt for years now that there's a missing link somewhere, that we're just jumping to a day school.
No, we do.
We do.
Yeah. We have social emotional programs K through 12 that would mimic the same, really that continuum of what would be typically the next step of a student would move to Stone. So we have our inclusion students who are fully included, receive all those services in general ed. We also have our sub-separate social emotional programs K through 12. And the 2 elementary programs are located at Maris and Doran. And then really the next step of that, and looking at the continuum of services, would be public day, which is Stone, or private day, which is really the comparable private.
So there's no students at Stone that never go through the other those 2 programs?
There will be students at times. If we have students who are showing very dangerous and unsafe behaviors, we may make the decision as a team, with a combination of our office as well as the school-based team, that the student needs a higher level of support in the interim. So there are definitely times in which we make that decision, but it's definitely not taken lightly, and we definitely have this discussion at that team meeting around least restrictive environment to ensure that student is going to go to the proper placement, that we think they're going to be able to make the most progress and still be safe at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's the point I'm making, is that I think we need to ramp up the other programs as well, so that we don't have as many kids jumping, or if we need more classrooms to open up, then we need to do that. And this has been going on Mr. Loesch, we're going back years ago, and I'm just confused a little, but it is what it is. So I would assume as we go into the RPA school, like that same theory would be, there shouldn't be kids coming from Durfee to Stone. I would think, I'm guessing, just by.
Well, there would
There
be
should
if
Could be.
there could be
Rare.
if there was a student. So
Yeah,
here,
it's not often.
a good example could be if a student was out of Durfee last year. We've had a couple, not with Durfee, but with other schools, was out of Durfee last year because they were doing remote learning, and some sort of trauma occurred while they were out, and we wouldn't necessarily know that until they come back into school. And if they present with some particularly unsafe behavior that could not necessarily be supported at RPA because of our therapeutic approach, not that you don't, because I know you do, but then they would probably come to us. So that is a possibility.
And I think one of the things, right, Mary Ellen, is when we're looking at that referral and that process is really the mental health need as
Right,
well.
right.
And a student's ability to engage in the therapeutic process as well.
Right.
Any other questions on that? So,
So, thank
all right,
you.
we'll move right into the RPA, right on cue, so.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Thank you.
Hi, Claudia.
So, RPA,
Yeah, so it's, has this at the top?
I think it's in the bottom here somewhere.
Is it just this
That's,
packet?
it's that packet, yes.
There you go, got it. Ready to
Thank
roll.
you.
Thank you.
So I started at Resiliency Preparatory Academy, RLM Resiliency Preparatory Academy, this July 12th is my first day as principal, and I've been enjoying it immensely. It is in an alternative Fall River Public School that serves students in grades 7 through 12. Our students find a better fit in our setting, mainly because of the smaller classes, and also we have a lot of attention to be able to give to all the students because of the smaller class size. The majority of our students are transferred to our campus from the other middle schools and from Durfee High School. We do have some that come to us from out of district after having moved, and they like the idea of a smaller school setting, or they may have been in an alternative school in whichever district they came from, so they decided to also come to a alternative school here as well. And there are some students who option it because they like the size, of the school and the attention that they will be getting there. The majority, we just are in the middle of a large intake right now and reviewing the reasons for most of the intake, which is not just for this current intake that's happening, but it's very repetitive, the reasons that we see for them. We have an intake center and they do record the reasons why the students are coming in. They're listed here are attendance issues, difficulty in credit accumulation, need for credit recovery options that are not available at other schools, conduct, the need for a smaller setting, and in some cases, felony charges, suspensions, and fighting, and possessions of weapons. So when we get, in a moment I'll get to what we do when we have these cases and how we go through the intake, but before I do, you could just take a look at the breakdown of the school. We have, as I said, it's 7 to 12. We keep the middle school as grades 7 through 9. And the breakdown of staff and students are here on the front page. I won't read them to you, but you can see them right here on the front page. And then we also have from 10 to 12. Both middle and high, each of them has a vice principal of each. Each has a guidance counselor, student adjustment counselor, behavior therapist, and the number of teachers, paraprofessionals are there. And the breakdown of the current student numbers. We also share across both the Director of Instruction and Special Ed Liaison, Family Support Specialist that helps us tremendously with our intake. When we have an intake, we meet with the families. We also meet with the principals that are sending first, and they tell us some information about the students, and then the students come in with their families, and we get to find out. We see what's on the paper about them, but this is also a great opportunity to find out about them, where the students can speak for themselves. Some of them have questions. Some of them are scared because of rumors that they may have heard, which they soon find out are largely inaccurate. And it's just an opportunity for us to meet them. So at that meeting is the intake coordinator, who also doubles as the guidance counselor for the middle school, the family support specialist, the SAC, so that we can go into ways that we will support the students as well. And I attend most of them. I try to do it because we have so many coming in right now. I cannot get to every single one, but I try to attend most of them that are there. And it's a pleasure to do so. The purpose of intake is to create as smooth a transition as possible for the students who are coming in.
Sure.
So we need to do this on a case-by-case basis. So, sometimes people say, I'm sending these students over, and, they think, okay, well, they'll just start. But we have to go through every single case. And sometimes what we have to find out is what are the specific needs of the students so that we can best program them appropriately. And we also have to find out who are students that this student has an ongoing conflict or a problem with, because we have to take that into consideration with placing them as well. This classrooms are small. There's not a lot of classrooms in the schools that, and the classes are kept at 15, so we must pay attention to things like that. We also have to pay attention to if the students who are coming in, if any of them are having conflicts or volatile situations amongst themselves. So we have to plan for that also. So we have to have opportunities for mediations prepared right away, and we do this before the student actually starts on the first day. That's not uncommon at all. We do meetings with the behavioral therapists where we talk about, where the behavioral therapist will talk to them about ways to manage instances when they run into this person or that person. What can you do? So we have a lot of setting up to do before the students start in most cases, and we have to do that for each and every child. So it's important that we have that time to be able to do that, to have that transition smoothly. In cases where there are altercations, and where there is a serious concern where there might be an altercation between students, if they are in the same school, something volatile has happened in the past and it's really not settled, we are creating a model where the student we have what's called a 3 to 5 program, or it's actually going to move to like a 3 to 6 program, and that's where students can take their classes, their learning after school from 3 to 5. Much of it is online, but we have the teacher and para available in the room, and we're expanding that by working with one of our community partners, Recreation and Youth Build. So they've been fabulous to us. So we're working out a model. I was just talking to them yesterday, as a matter of fact. We're working out a model where they may be able to go there. They're just down the street from us, from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and work on skill building there at their site. Then from 1 to 2, they will be able to have opportunities to work on wellness. Whether their child's situation tends to be that we found out they may be in a gang or it's gang related, they work with them on, moving them away from that and looking for other alternatives, whether it be extreme anger management. So they will get that. So they'll get the skill building and they will get the wellness support that they need that pertains to their particular concern. Then they'll be able to have lunch there and then come to the academy for the 3 to 5 program, which is becoming the 3 to 6 program, work on their courses, which, as I said, is online, but with teacher and para support, and then after that have dinner. So they'll be able to have a full schedule, but a schedule that meets the needs that they have and also takes into mind the safety of the situation that could possibly have become volatile. So that's one of the things that we have. Other students that we are working on, other students that we have that are not necessarily in a volatile case, they just tend to not go to classes, or they sometimes mouth off to teachers, or they need credit accumulation, those types of things. They can come in with a more regular schedule. Classes are smaller size, they're capped at 15, and we provide opportunities for them for credit recovery both during and after the school day. But I do want to say that we are looking a great deal at our current student schedule and making some changes with it. Since I've been there, I've done a lot of research with my admin team and with my teachers to look at what works best in alternative schools and for students who don't like going to class and who would like to wander the halls. And one of the things that we saw is taking a look at how the student's day is broken up. So I kept that research in mind, and I have been meeting with every single student in the school. We are going over their credit accumulation, because many students, when we got there, they didn't know if they were a freshman, if they were sophomore, if they were junior. They thought, because I've been in a school, high school for 3 years, that means automatically means I'm a junior. But their credits actually show that they're a freshman, and they're like, what are you talking about? So it's been quite so we sat down with each one, every single one. I am doing with the high school guidance counselor, and the middle school team is doing with the middle school students, and we're going over. I created a specific chart for them that they get to take a copy of it with them, so they know exactly what classes they have to take to be considered a 9th grader, 10th, 11th, 12th, etc. And they're able to we put the grades in, we fill it in, they sign it, and then they see, okay, this is where I am. So that has been very helpful and motivating to them, because they have said, I've been also jotting down some of the things that they say as we have these one-to-one meetings. They've been saying, I've really got to move, or oh my God, I've got to do that. Having it concrete on the paper made the lights turn on, made everything clear for them.
The reference.
Exactly. And so they sign it, and then we're going to have a follow-up in another 2 months to see how they're doing. We review their progress report with them to see to what extent this is what they have to do, this is where they are.
Is it Dave Dussault?
Dave Dussault works with the middle school. He works with Matthew Scott in doing it, and I've been doing it with the high school. We had to split it up so that we could get it done in a time, but he's been doing an awesome job, and he also leads the
Uncle
intakes.
Dave.
Oh, okay.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? I think I heard you say that wasn't being done in the past, like
No, I'm not saying that it wasn't being done. I'm saying that many students, sometimes you tell students things, and I'm sure that they have been told, but sometimes having it on the paper that they sign and saying, I understand that this is where I am with the credits, just having that has been something that we put in, and that they
that
really
seems
enjoy.
very basic. I worked there years ago, and we did it years ago, so
Yeah.
it just was surprising when you said it wasn't happening.
Well, I said they didn't realize it, and
Right.
so that's, sometimes things, when it's said, goes in one ear and out the other, but when it's concrete, I like things to be very concrete. So they have that, the file is there. When they stop in, I say, okay, let's look, and it's here, so it's referred to regularly, and it's been very helpful to them. In addition to that, let me see where I was just left off. We are also taking a look at our schedule, because our schedule has many core classes in a row. And the students are finding it very difficult to sit for a long time, and they because of sometimes many of them have maybe ADHD or ADD, they just have trouble sitting, or the average person just doesn't like to sit for 3 or 4 hours nonstop. So we're looking at how the schedule is organized, and we are putting it together a bit differently, where there's like maybe just only 2 core classes in a row, and then followed by something very tactile.
Yep.
So it may be core class, and then an elective advisory that we're putting into place, where they're doing a lot, in addition to using the Choose Love, they're also going to be doing a lot of hands-on things that they have to do to get up. There'll be an exercise and recreation session, a student council, a first aid session that our nurse is going to be doing, one for yoga, stretching, and calming routines, one for community support and engagement, and that will be working with Pastor Rob, who's in the church next to us, in terms of getting some things out to the community that are needed, food and items that some families need, photography, furniture decorating, and one that I actually lead, and I have a lot of fun doing it, which is the Academy Beautification Committee. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that one in just a few minutes. It's something that we're working on with Mr. Pacheco at the superintendent's office, but it's been very exciting. But the students like this. It's been very hands-on, and it makes them say, okay, this period will come. Exactly, it's coming. So they don't have to wait so long before they have an opportunity to move. So we're putting very strategic points in our school schedule for students to be able to move. By doing that, they know it's coming. We haven't had problems in the halls. So that has been a great thing that we have been adding, and we're going to be expanding on that more by making it even a more formalized in the children's schedules for the upcoming trimesters.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the list here, and it's physical ed or art. Do you have a full-time teacher?
Yes, we do.
So what is the utilization of those individuals if the phys ed and art is only the 5th period?
Oh, no. That is, it's not going to be only the 5th period. It might be heavier. We may have maybe heavier during that period. It won't only be that period, but the students who we know, so we know that we have the core, and then we have the advisory, and then lunch, and then a core. Those who we know need another set of movement, we'll try to personally look at how we do the schedules and put them there at the end of the day, and rather than having a core class at the end of the day. It's something that they'll be able to look forward to.
The only phys ed is, when I'm reading this, it looks like as if that's the only one they work 20% of the day.
No, it won't be the only one. It's going to be throughout the day, but we're going to look very carefully at which students we put there, and go through it. It's going to take a long time to program, but we're going to very
No, I
individualize
understand. Just
program.
it just begged the question because of the way it
Yeah.
looked. Thank
No,
you.
I could see why you said that the way it's listed there. I could see why you asked
Thank
that
you.
question. In addition to that, we also have we instituted this year, what we have called Culture of the Academy, and it's an opportunity to bond, because I want the students to feel like, first of all, I want them to know that we want them there. They are wanted there. I appreciate them. They are fun. They're funny. And I want to do things with them that they know when they come there, it is a safe environment that warmly welcomes them. So we instituted what's called Culture of the Academy, and I've listed some of the points there in the bullets. It's an opportunity for students to gather in a productive environment, build communication skills, work on discussions with professionals, and just build. We bond what we call. We bond, and we have become what we call the family of the academy. And every letter that I send out to students, every letter that I send out to staff begins with "Dear Family of the Academy." And it's in that font, it's kind of branded that way so that everybody knows, every child knows that they are wanted there. You know, sometimes they've heard other messages out there, you know, that coming to the academy is a punishment. We don't see it there. We see it as, this is a better fit for you, and we welcome you here. And that has made such a difference. Words make such a difference. So I really pay attention to that, and it's a pleasure. We also do a lot of work in civic concerns. We did some baskets of goods and things for some people in the community, along with Pastor Rob. We did some things with recreation and youth build. So a full description of what the Culture of the Academy is can be seen here on this page. And it's our guiding page for Culture of the Academy. As you can see, it's what builds the family of the academy. It's done once a week. It is in the schedule. It has been added to the schedule every Wednesday. And every Wednesday we have different activities with the students that we build up to in the previous day's advisories. So I included a couple of examples for you. I thought you might like to see just a couple of them that we did. The very first one that we had was 3 different workshops with the students. One on meeting the new principal, because I wanted everyone to know who I was, to have an opportunity to talk about what's important to me and learn what's important to them. The other one was called Moving the Academy, where they got the opportunity to say, you know, these are some things I would really love to have in a school. These are some things that would make me really want to come to a school. And we worked on them, you know, with that. Another one was on goal setting. So they went to all 3 that day. Each one was about 25 minutes. And they rotated. They got the opportunity to give input in each of those and then rotated again. And it was very, very successful. The students liked it. They said that they got an opportunity to share their voice, which was so important to them. And they said that it felt like their thoughts and what they had to say mattered a great deal. So I was very happy about that. Another one that we did, this bright red page that used up all the ink, that made my secretary quite upset, but still, was the Heart Health Walk. So in the advisories that led up to this one, the students learned a lot about habits that they are engaged in,
Of course.
and their parents are engaged in, that are very unhealthy for the heart. And making a choice of what are you drinking? Are you drinking water? Are you drinking this kind of energy drink that has a caffeine in it and makes your heart beat faster? So we had a lot of small film clips and TED Talks and things like that the students were able to watch. Then they had to monitor what they were drinking, what they were eating, how many steps they took. We had a little contest over who took the most steps, and so they were just very, very engaged in it. And they learned a great deal about the heart and heart health care. And then we had a heart health walk throughout the neighborhood, teachers and students side by side. It was another very bonding experience and learning a great deal. The science teachers helped a great deal in putting this together. So this was really it culminated on Culture of the Academy Day with a walk, a healthy heart walk around the neighborhood. Another one that we did, we had the state troopers come in. They were fantastic. They did sessions with students on implicit bias. learning about stereotypes. It made them aware of to what extent they have stereotypes in their lives, and students got to ask really hard questions, to the troopers, and they answered very honestly, and it was a wonderful back and forth discussions. We kept the group small so that there would be a lot of opportunity for interaction, and because we had it in 4 different rooms with about 6 different troopers came, and we had it in the different rooms, and it was great for the students. After that, it was a great opportunity for the students and these officers to have they had a game of dodgeball, so it was an opportunity for them to end this on a good note with the troopers. And it's important to say that in the beginning, some students says, no, I don't want to meet with cops. It's negative, it's not whatever, but they ended up with, the conversation went overtime. As a matter of fact, I had to push the next class back a little bit because the conversation was so rich between them and such understandings were built. And then they got the opportunity to play together and cool off with some water together and go for a walk. So this was really very advantageous. So this is every Wednesday at the Academy.
What time?
It is roughly at 10:20. I'll be happy to send you an invitation.
Please.
Okay. And I'm very excited. I said before that Youth Build has been doing a lot of work with us in recreation. They have been phenomenal. They've had trips, down there. We've had Beautification of the Academy working on the landscape, because one of the things that we're
Are the
working on.
kids doing that work?
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's very exciting that when they said they don't like the way there's no flowers, it looks very just grass and cement. So my belief is, if there's something you don't like, change it. So what are the steps that we have to do? So we have, and there's some, if I'd known you were interested in that, I would have brought some additional artifacts with me, but I can do that at a later time. They have been working on selecting which plants would be best for outside and checking the bloom time so that there'll never be a period of time when there's no blooms going on. So these flowers bloomed from this period to that period, these from this period to that period, et cetera, et cetera. They did the chart, they did the artwork of the school, and they did the plotting of the landscape architecture. Mr. Ken Pacheco, our Chief of Facilities, has been working on this with us. He and I would just happen to be talking one day, and he said, I'd really like to see what they're doing. And so they put the whole plan together. And today, for our Culture of the Academy, we walked down to the superintendent's building. He had the conference room prepared for us. The students presented. It was a business meeting. We prepared them on how to conduct themselves for a business meeting, how to come into the superintendent's office and introduce yourself. Everything that we do is a lesson that includes science or art or, if that we do in the advisory or Culture of the Academy. That is what we do. And we also teach them the social skills that they should have. How do you introduce yourself to Mr. Pacheco? Everything. So portions of it were videotaped, photos taken. It was great. And he then showed us the next steps that we have to do in order to get this done. And he's going to assist us with certain areas from his end, et cetera. But the students came back proud, happy, they're making a change, and so they're very pleased about that. So there's description, so I said I just included a few of these for you to see some of the work that we have been doing. It makes this is actually, we do the typical things for attendance. We make the phone calls home, we call, we go to the houses, we visit, we do all of that. But these things actually make a difference in the attendance too, because the students are so excited. As a matter of fact, I will tell you that we have one child who has to be out right now because they have to be checked for COVID, and knew that this was happening today and called the nurse and said, if I really wrap my face really well and don't cough, can I please come? Because I really want to be at the presentation with that guy at the superintendent's office. He didn't remember his name. And we had to tell him, we're really sorry, we have to wait until we get the proof, and so he was very disappointed that he couldn't be there. So, but that's the kind of effect that we are really trying to create with this Family of the Academy work. So I know I'm taking a lot of time, I'll just go through the rest. So we are also looking at how we do advisory. We do include information from the Choose Love curriculum, but we, again, make it very hands-on. So that we have broken up, there's a group that does the advisory for grades 7 to 9, a group for grade 10, and a group for grades 11 and 12, because there's different needs that the students have then. The grades 11 and 12 are really looking at preparedness for post-secondary life, and what are some, things that they're very interested in. They have a theme that goes throughout the week. They have a guest speaker that comes in every Wednesday based on what the students' needs are. They go with important how you should present yourself to the speaker, how you pay attention, what are the social skills that you should be using, and then they take notes about what they're learning from the speaker and what they learn, like what steps. Okay, so if I want to do this career, I have to focus on this in college. I have to do this, I have to do this, etc. So it's very much career and post-secondary planning. The 10th grade does a lot of work on beautification of the school and making changes and self-advocating and civic responsibility. Grade 7 to 9 does a lot of work on self-regulation, reflection of choices, and they use the above the line and below the line behavior strategies that our vice principal brought in there. We also applied for the Mass Grad Dropout Prevention Grant because I'd really like to expand this work. I'd like to see it continue in the summer. For the purpose of avoiding regression. It's very easy to go back to old habits. Students have had some of these habits for 14, 15, 16, 17 years. So we've really been working on it each day, but we only have them from September to June. We want to continue throughout the year with it, throughout the summer as well. So we're looking at what that could look like and the opportunities that we could get if we're awarded that grant. So we want to avoid regression, and we want to be honest, we're also in competition with elements that are out there in the street. And they're just as eager to get some of our students as we want to create them with a positive life. So if we keep them busy in positives, and we have more students like that student today who, although he has technically an excused sick day, who wants to come in, we want to encourage that kind of thing with our students. And the last thing I will say is we are working on rebranding the Academy. You'll notice that throughout this session and everywhere throughout my presentation, you heard me refer to it as the Academy. And that is on purpose. It's because students have told me, that RPA means, like you're the bad kid, or you're here because you're wrong, you're not right, and that's not the case. Okay, other places just we're not the fit for the child, and the difference in what you see, that it's evident. The halls are clear. The students are in the hall when we strategically take them out for a stroll in it, or when we strategically plan to involve them in something, and then we know they're out. You can look at the cameras, you'll see everything is clear. The work that we're doing is purposeful, and it's been fun. So we go back to what the term the Academy means, and we go back to the old Greek meaning of it, a center of learning, a sacred space, and a place where cultural accumulation, where knowledge is accumulated through cultural experiences. And that's us. So I will refer to it as the Academy always, and it's in everything that's in here, and that is done. So I hope that I've given you a bit of a picture of what it's like, in the school and some of the things that we're working on, and I welcome any questions or feedback.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brooks, for that presentation. That was very comprehensive. I remember when the alternative program was a seed development, because we had no alternative school until maybe the mid-1990s. And at that point, it was just a space in a building. We used to be on Stafford Road on the second floor of the senior center, and there were 4 classrooms, and it was just, we had a park next door, thankfully, so we were able to do our therapeutics outdoors at the park. But to see where our alternative programming was back then to the presentation that you just gave us now, I could see that our district is moving in leaps and bounds, and the created awareness, the necessity for this different environment as you just presented, because I just defended your program to a constituent out there that thought it was warehousing kids.
Yeah.
And I said no, it's environmental, and that's what it is. And so my questions are on the intake process, not on how you're doing it, but because you're doing it so thoroughly. Okay, that was my biggest gripe through the years, was on the intake and the revolving door that was created as a result of faulty intake at the beginning, because a lot of times in the early days it was a dumping ground. It was, okay, get that kid out to the alternative school, you know. But now there's a vetted intake process, which I think is incredibly important and sets the basis for your own awareness to the students coming into your school, and the necessities to support them, you know, to create that support system for them. So I'm very impressed with your intense intake program. Thank you for that. The next thing is the sense of belonging that you've created, that environment, that it was there before, you know, but now you're really intensifying it. And that sense of belonging, it's not a castaway school, not at all.
Right.
I've been there many, many times, you know, so I know what the program is. And I was going to inquire about guest speakers before you started going into that, because I know one of your faculty members asked me many months ago, pre-pandemic, about trying to get a guest speaker program going. I never was able to get it going because of this huge interruption. But I'm glad to know that you're bringing in people from the community
Yes, we are.
into the school to meet with the kids and talk to them about real life and real expectations and real goals. That's important. Okay, the next thing, I'm really, really pleased with the culture of the academy. When you started talking about implicit bias and you're meeting with the state troopers, I belong to the Youth Violence Prevention Task Force here in Fall River, and we just met with our police chief, and we're going to reinstitute or re-engage in a program that we were doing very successfully a few years back called Police Youth Dialogues. And I'm just wondering if we could bring some of those dialogues to your school.
Yes.
Okay, so you can expect a phone call from Christian McCluskey.
Oh, yes.
And Christian's going to coordinate the whole thing. He's on the task force with us. And we're going to have our first dialogue next week at the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay.
And so we'll do it at various locations throughout, different schools, different agencies, and the such. So that's really good to know that we'll be able to go to
Yes, you will.
to Resilience Preparatory Academy, okay, and present one of those at least a few of those dialogues, and it would be in conjunction with the SROs as well.
Yes.
You know, they would be very present at that. Thank you. I yield.
I had just a question on, are you still doing competency-based education there?
Yes, we
So
are.
like kids can bump up if they're overage, undercredited? Is that still in existence?
It is, yes, it is. It is in existence, yes.
And how is that? Is that through Edgenuity?
It is through Edgenuity, and also with an interview with the teachers and answering, they have to also test out or do some kind of project that includes the standards, that they would have to show that they have met the standards in certain areas.
Yeah. We have a thing down here for high school, so it's similar type of question at that point. When you talk about the students coming and going, I saw the numbers seem like they're relatively low at the current time, and we're a couple months in. Where are we at with that? You had just touched on it briefly, that I think you're in the process of.
Yes, we are. We
major
are
thing.
currently doing intake for 21 students right now as we speak this week. And then we have one waiting for another 9 students. So that will probably be about the end of next week or the beginning of the week after that.
And that coincides with the term, you're on trimesters, the high school's on
Well,
quarters, or the same?
No, we're
well,
on term.
well, currently,
Quarters?
I'm sorry.
So they go one quarter, like, and you go a third, so like,
Right, we're changing that now. We're in the midst of changing that right now, as a matter of fact. We had a meeting with the faculty about it today, and we took a look at how it would work out. And so we are actually going to be doing, January 24th would actually be the semester.
yeah.
Rather moving away from trimesters. And that will allow us to align with the schools that are sending. It's easier on the students that way. Yeah, it's just it's better for transition.
Yeah. The question that I've always asked this at almost every meeting, we need a decision maker, somebody that's actually going to be the final person, because we could agree we're all on the same page. I think the kid should go to that school. He says no. Like, we need an administrative, assistant superintendent, whoever, to
Yeah, somebody
so
that's.
somebody can say, hey, I'll take all the info and this is the decision. Is that now
They can discern
Dr.
better.
Taylor? Is it the superintendent and
Well,
Mr.
that actually, I know that when I was a principal, Andargan used to be the person. Dr. Taylor's the one who's overseeing RPA. She's supposed to be the person, but in her absence, that would be me or Michael Lush.
Yeah, but there is a person.
Yes.
Like, that's the, because
That's fine.
you get into like who's going, who's not going.
When we meet, both principals, appropriate vice principals, guidance, counselors,
We were-
someone from Central, we had a meeting this week. Michael was there, Allison Olive was there on behalf of special education, so all the stakeholders from the district level and the schools are at the table. And it's an open
Yeah,
conversation.
and that also, the same question would be for kids that come from outside, like, who goes to Durfee? The kids automatically get sent to RPA, you know, like, that is filtered to
Yes, it
the
is.
information goes to them.
Yes,
and
it is.
This, you can,
Upon registration, I'm usually in direct contact with Drew regarding students and their specific situations. I think, it's a much more clear-cut situation when a student is overage and unaccredited. Other situations where we're looking at past conduct history and behavior and the overall needs of student is ones we take a little bit more time really to decipher out and also consult the school on.
but one of you would be the
Yes, absolutely.
end result, it's on you to say up or down. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I thought it was very thorough, and you're doing a lot of different things, so, Mr. Corey.
I got one more question. I forgot to ask when I was asking questions, but it seems like there's been a long-established partnership with CD Rec anyway, especially with that school, but I'm happy that you're working on deepening that partnership with CD Rec, because I know that they could provide
Oh, yes.
so many great services. We've engaged with them in the past to connect us with the jobs center for the kids.
Yes,
You know,
we
so
have
that
that.
during the summer and during the school year, we're hooking them up with jobs.
Yes.
And all of their behaviors are monitored because, they're receiving assistance too. So, I mean, it's really, really good. So
It is very good.
I just wanted to say thank you again, Dr. Brooks, for your presentation and what you're trying to establish there. It's very necessary, especially at this time in our society, to have a program like yours working to its fullest capacity, and I hope that we can create even greater capacity, infrastructure-wise, facility-wise, in the future, for even more hands-on, or maybe some, maybe a van or a bus from your building to Durfee's building, get the kids involved in hairdressing, or welding, or culinary arts, or anything like that, would be really good for that high school age child.
Yes, it would.
So, thank you. With that, I yield, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So those took a little longer than we thought, but I think these will be a little quicker, these parts here, I'm sure.
Sorry.
Just a quick question, these, like, what is this from? These,
Although that's all part of the
with yours, okay, so I can put
What's
that
the next
there.
thing here?
So the next on the agenda is the Evolve Academy update.
All right.
We know what the program is, if you moved over to the high school, if you could just give us a brief, where you're at.
Sure, so we can go very quickly through this, if you
Yep.
like. So on this presentation sheet, right on the first page, you'll see that's a picture of students doing what we call WIT period, which is whatever it takes. It's our team building intervention period at the end of the day. So that's just a snapshot of that. On the first page, you'll see our mission statement there, basically building on individual strengths of students who have disengaged from traditional high school, and really looking to help them succeed and establish goals to meet for their post-secondary ed, holistic support, rigorous student-centered academics, and real-world opportunities to learn and serve in the community. Those are our main core levers of our mission. Everything we do is grounded in that mission. On the next page, you'll see who does Evolve Serve. There's a picture of our students receiving Student of the Week awards along with core value awards. Every Friday we have a celebration to really recognize exemplary students and students who are showing the core values that we want all students to exemplify. So again, this is a pathway for overage, undercredited students who have disengaged. That could be students who have dropped out and are re-engaging. It could be students who are off track in terms of credits, or students who are just non-attending and have had difficulty engaging with attendance and academic success. So these students are finding better engagement through project-based, competency-based learning versus the traditional seat time approach. And these students, again, are in smaller classes that are lower than 15 in number. And students also receive intensive academic case management through a primary person model, similar to advisory, but it's more intensive in terms of they're assigned a 1:12 ratio with advisors who do thorough weekly case conferencing about smaller chunk goals for students. And students demonstrate choice of this pathway through an application and interview process. On the next page is a more thorough breakdown of data about Evolve students. So right now we have 60 students currently enrolled. 23 of them were from Durfee High School from the start of this year, so that's 38%. Similarly, 38% also were from RPA. They moved from that building with us this year. 9 are new to district that have transferred in, and 5 students have re-engaged who were dropped out previously. So students who were absent from the very beginning of the school year, they were attending Durfee, but they had not attended yet. They enrolled in our pathway and they started attending. So there were 6 students that were potential dropouts. So this is a really strong dropout prevention for those 6 students in addition to the rest. Students who are on IEPs comprise about 35%. Students in DCF custody, we have 10% of students there. This is interesting, the LGBTQIA+ community, 35% of our student body identifies in that community, along with 47% who have experienced trauma that they report has impeded their academic success. It's half of our students. Students who have also self-reported that anxiety has impeded their academic success and school attendance. 75% have said that anxiety is the reason. 55% have also said that depression is a serious barrier to their learning and engagement with school. And currently, students who are on track to be labeled as chronically absent from school, 94% of our students currently are labeled to be on track as chronic. So these students really struggle with engagement and attendance. On the next page, this is just a short recap since I know we've presented before. In 2008, it was the design year where we worked with Bar Foundation and the thought partner Springpoint to create the Evolve Academy design. We were awarded a grant to do the design work. Because of the design we submitted, they again awarded us another grant to pilot Evolve, and we piloted in 2019 to 2020. We had 27 students that year in the first floor of RPA. Then we reapplied after our pilot year, and based on metrics, they reapproved us for another grant for an implementation for 2 years. We are in the second year currently of implementation. Last year, we had 29 students, so we were able to maintain enrollment and add 2 more students. Our goal was to get to 50 students last year, so we did not meet that goal. But we are well over what we wanted to meet this year with 60, which is great. In our second year of implementation, moving to Durfee High School. So on the next slide, that being said, the relocation to Durfee significantly impacted our enrollment in a way that we did not predict, which is great. So our initial enrollment was 27 students at the start of this school year. Last year, throughout the entire year, we received 12 applications. But just the month of September alone, because we had relocated, we received 36 applications. So we more than tripled our applications in 1 month than we did an entire year before. Our current enrollment is 60 overage undercredited students. And our occupancy right now is in 4 classrooms on the first floor of Durfee High School. So we are at the number that we set out. We wanted to have by the end of this year. We already met our enrollment in the very beginning of the year. And when I made this slide, we had 7 students on a wait list already who have applied and feel that this would be a really great academic environment for their success. That's already up to 9 now. So we have 9 students on a wait list, and we're currently planning for this unforeseen enrollment increase. The next page is a collection of pictures, just to kind of show you a snapshot of some of the community building and the great things that we're doing with a lot of these students who were off track. The first picture, that's an animation. That's actually a picture of student work that was featured in the New York Times. We had 2 students published in the New York Times. I believe the article is included in your packet we submitted prior. But those 2 students were featured in the New York Times for their artwork, and that was artwork and a project that they completed the first 2 days of school. So we work with an organization called Springpoint. They help us develop and design competency-based curriculum. And this was a mini TLE the first 2 days of school to help students establish community, re-engage in school, because again, many of our students were not in school for almost 2 years. A lot of them were remote. So this was a way for them to reconnect to peers, kind of talk about what they found during the pandemic. And it was also a great way for our teaching staff to work with other schools who are also implementing this TLE throughout New England to really showcase student work, and they were also featured in the New York Times. So it's a really great accomplishment for our students and staff. There are also pictures of students during our WIT period working collaboratively together. They were cooking, they were designing tie-dye t-shirts, pumpkin carving. There's a whole variety of very hands-on community building activities that we have every other week with our school community. And they've been proving very effective in translating to students having academic discourse in classes. They're getting more comfortable collaborating and talking to each other because of these types of hands-on community building activities. So our next steps in terms of the Beyond Engage New England, which is the next grant that we are being invited to apply for. We're in the 2nd year of our implementation grant, so the next step would be to apply for Beyond ENE. And that entails awards up to $600,000 for the next 3 years. So that would be up until 2025. Our plans would be to apply for this grant, and we would like your blessing to apply for this grant and continue our work. We would like to hold our enrollment at 60 students this year, and then develop some smart growth moving forward of how we can expand eventually to the end of the grant period to accommodate 100 students in 2025. In addition to the $600,000, there is a lot of really great support that we get from our foundation and mainly Springpoint. They provide us with the competency-based curriculum because it is very innovative, difficult work that there isn't a lot of PD out there on developing competency-based models. So we are really grateful that we have that support. There's a lot of robust teacher and leader coaching. Every week I get 2 hours of leadership coaching, and that translates into each teacher gets an hour of coaching a week as well. That's very individualized, which is something we find very powerful for teachers at very different levels. There's frequent professional development after school with other students. Students and teachers will attend this after school because we really want to hear feedback from students on how lessons are being implemented, how we can provide better differentiation on some of these lessons. And being connected to that larger learning network with other Engage New England schools has been really helpful because teachers can meet with other teachers implementing this competency-based curriculum and really fine-tune it so it really is unique to our demographic and community. Also, we get partnership development. That's actually what this picture is on this slide. Students are actually Skyped in with a student from a school in New York who wrote the exemplar for their My POV college essay unit. So they were actually having conversations with another student who wrote an exemplar essay, and they were able to ask the student about the revision process and writing techniques. So it was very interesting that students had the opportunity to talk to other students who are finding success in these units. And that's another piece of this grant is that Springpoint does provide us with partnership development, so they make those connections and support us in doing so. Because it is very time consuming, and it takes a lot of effort to really establish and maintain a lot of those partnerships. Also, they give us support with our primary person model and developing our capacity to continue designing our own curriculum in the future, because that's really what we want to get to. The next slide is an overall timeline of our actions in terms of growing the pathway. So data, even across the district, is supporting the need for more alternative pathways for students who are off track, and we need greater dropout prevention. So this is one of those pathways that provides that support. So we are hoping to apply for Beyond E&E. The timeline is listed right now in November. That's when the application opens, and this process is going to be different than past processes where you would have to submit a narrative. This one is more performance-based. So throughout the year, we would be working to collect specific artifacts about student progress, student work, rigorous lessons that we've designed and implemented, feedback from students, a systems approach, many different types of categories of these artifacts. We would need to submit them and then also engage in an interview process again at the end to see if we would be approved for the next round of grant or the next round of funding. So, and if we are growing to 125 students, we would need to search for a potential space within the district. So, the last slide is just an overview of upcoming exhibitions of student learning, because all of our competency-based units culminate in a public product where students can take pride in their work, demonstrate that they've met competencies. So we do invite authentic audiences and opportunities for our students to present, because really that's one thing that we pride ourselves on is the rigor and the level of students really showing what they know. So tomorrow actually is our first exhibition for the My POV unit for English, where students are presenting their college essay narratives. That's tomorrow morning at 9:45. And then on November 18th from 5 to 7, we have several of our TLEs that will be showcasing all of the final projects. So you'll see the science one is a mindful meal presentation. History has 2 different TLEs that they've run this term on the monument of Fall River Trail, and then there's unlocking campaign ads. X marks the spot is a scavenger hunt that uses trigonometric and linear equations, and payday loan students are creating podcasts about the positives and negatives of payday loans for their math class. So we would invite everyone to attend those as well. All right, I went very quickly through this.
That was good.
Mr. Perry, you got any questions?
I do. I'm not overly knowledgeable about Evolve. I've heard it brought up. I know that you've been working on it since its inception. I'm pleased to see that it's growing. I'm glad to see that we're meeting the parameters of the grant demands, and hopefully you get the new grant. My question is, if it does grow, is there going to be space to accommodate that?
And that's a great question. And right now we're looking for viable options within the district, because we really want to have a smart growth model to kind of really strategically figure out spacing for that and how we can grow this.
So beyond the parameters of the program, are the kids allowed to take other courseworks, other electives?
Yes. So our schedule it accommodates students who can take a period 1 Durfee elective or also a period 6 Durfee elective.
Good.
As
Good.
well as, if I could add, with the CTE after doc program.
And that as well.
That's available to students at Academy and at Evolve. Right now we have cosmetology running.
Good.
We have the potential to add construction, craft labor, but I'm also looking at how maybe we add culinary.
That's really good. Does Mrs. Damaris, in the construction craft, is there a partnership also with Youth Build?
Not that I'm aware of. Our partnership is with the International Labor Union, curriculum they brought.
Okay. Do they help to provide some of the tools necessary to run the program?
They're an amazing resource.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, thank you. I yield.
Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it. Next up is the high school credit recovery options.
Good work, Jim.
Mr. Damaris?
So, which one do you have there?
So there's,
This one
Okay,
will cover
well,
both
yeah.
all schools.
yeah, so in your packet, you have three documents, kind of this overview cover sheet that has a Venn diagram, kind of giving a high-level view of the credit recovery options at Durfee and also at RPA, as well as where they overlap in the middle. And then you have a specific handout for the Durfee credit recovery options, as well as the RPA credit recovery options available to students with a little bit more detailed information. Both Durfee and RPA offer a variety of credit recovery options for students who are off track. Kind of the major difference between their focuses is that Durfee focuses on students up to 1.5 years who are off track. It's typically maybe a course or two, up to maybe 5 or 6 courses. Once students go beyond that and are overaged and under credit, that we often look to the Academy to also offer some credit recovery options because they have somewhat different tools that they can accelerate on-time graduation.
Yeah. You know, are you done?
Yeah, I can go into greater detail or I'm happy to answer any questions.
We can go to questions. Go ahead, Mr. Corey.
Well, I know this, Mr. Woodward. I know that it's like setting up a superhighway system with on-ramps and off-ramps and, you know what I mean, alternative routes. It was never this complex 25 years ago, and I've seen these designs become more complex as the years roll on, and here you are talking about Evolve, RPA, Durfee, credit recovery, off-track students. It's amazing. But you know what? The times demand it. And I know that you have a strong handle on designing these systems. And I want to personally thank you for your hard work, your dedication, because creating a map like this is just not easy. You know, there's so much consideration involved in the construction of these pathways, and to be able to monitor off-track students responsibly, which brings me back to the intake process at RPA and how incredibly important that base level knowledge is, so that we can support the wholeness of the student. You know, so I want to thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Woodward. I'm very much in tune with the work that you do, and I appreciate it deeply. And I appreciate both your presentations deeply, because I know that we're taking care of these kids that could certainly use these extra services. I yield.
So this had come up at the Durfee Program of Studies back at the ad building, where my concern at that time was we took all of the credit recovery options out of the Program of Studies. So the reason why I wanted this to be on is to follow up on that, to say, you know, where were we? I think we either missed a meeting, whatever we said we were going to do. I'm looking at this, just seeing it now for the first time, about the 1 to 6 courses. Do you know how many students enrolled at Durfee that fit that category, and how many are over 6 at the current time?
Well, I'd say off the cuff without having that data, we're way more than we'd expect at this point because of what just happened. But we did have in our summer programming approximately 500 kids took advantage of summer school this year, and got some catch up to do still, because when you think about the first round of the pandemic and that incomplete year, there's still some work that remains, although the kids have moved along and are progressing. So Julie might have a better handle on it. I don't know how to number from stagger, or we can certainly.
Yeah, I mean, you get a rough idea, like you must have researched it.
Yeah, we have significant increase of students who need credit recovery than in a typical year. One of the important factors in determining who goes to RPA and who stays at Durfee for credit recovery in terms of the off-track student. When we looked at seniors, for example, we looked at students who had under 60 credits. They need 100 credits to graduate. So we had 28 seniors, for example, who had under 60 credits going in, and it would be hard for us to support on-time graduation at Durfee, but through competency-based testing and other avenues at RPA, it would be more possible. So those were students, for example, that we prioritized in the first meeting to transition over to RPA. So we look primarily at juniors and seniors for the credit recovery model at Durfee, and we try to do a lot of work with the freshmen and sophomores with grade recovery and building skills, supporting them in their current classes that they're failing before going to the credit recovery model. We also find that for Edgenuity in general, our older students tend to find more success at a more rapid pace and ingenuity than our younger students.
So you said there's 28 already moved, is that?
We've identified 28, and we've essentially prioritized them. So I think we moved about 20 students altogether to RPA due to the intake process. That is very important. We wanted to make sure that RPA had time to do the deep dive into intake. So we'll be having meetings on a rolling basis to transition students who may need that additional level of credit recovery.
Yeah, I mean, I just, personally, I'm concerned about that because we should know what we have year to year. And if we know that they're already in, like, why are we waiting until now to be having these meetings? These kids have been in schools for 2 months already. Would be one of my concerns just in general to see what are they doing in the meantime? You know, that would be one of my concerns. The second one is if we're using competency-based testing, so if I'm a student at Durfee and I'm a senior and I get transferred to RPA, at RPA I do the competency-based testing, I show the knowledge and the skills, you know, all of that stuff to check out, they give me the credits. But why can't Durfee just do that?
So if I could answer, on the first part, what we've done as practice for the last 5, 6, 7 years at least, is that a referral on a senior for credit recovery happens after term 2. And there's a strong desire for Durfee, for students to stay at Durfee and give it a shot and try. Now, if the numbers don't make sense, the numbers don't make sense, and maybe we could be referring some of those students earlier. To the point about the competency-based testing, we've tried competency-based testing since the start of the pandemic. So the class of 2020 and the class of 2021, there were efforts at the competency-based testing. With that being said, it's a pretty intense process. And what we learned from our friends over at RPA is that it takes an intense amount of focus with a one-on-one with staff and a lot of trial and error. Try again, take a break. You know, the kids know the stuff, but to be able to persevere through the testing, it's we saw it in front of us as a challenge. So it's not that we don't want to do the competency-based testing. We'll still do it, and we've done it. It's just that the environment that RPA can provide the students to take that test is there, not at the comprehensive.
Yeah. No, I hear you, and it's not an exact science, I get it.
Sure.
But we just heard about how you see, the student sees the plan, they know what the plan is, they see it, they sign it, they know. Why is that not, I'm not suggesting it's not happening, but I didn't hear that it was, but, so like if you knew the kid in June of last year, you know, you said some kids at summer school, are they having the same thing? You got, 40 credits or whatever, you're not gonna get it in a year. That's my point, is why are we waiting until, you said term 2 is not even, we're not even out of term 1.
Yeah. Well,
so you're talking January?
So I think there's a capacity issue in terms of moving numbers over to RPA, and that we can get some kids back on the beam and get them to graduation. If they go the extra mile, if they go beyond the 6-period day, you know, because if you buy the numbers, if they're not there to make it by the end of the year and you're in your senior year, it does make sense to go to RPA. If we go sooner, we're going to fill the seats at the start of every year and have no capacity over there to move students over there for other reasons. And the students want to be at the comprehensive high school.
Yeah. All I would suggest is that we get the data, look
Sure.
at the data,
So,
and we can multi-year plan it, and at some point, people have to understand, if you don't have X credits, you're not going to the company. Tough decisions, some people will be mad, but
they're not in the dock.
reality.
They're not in the dock. Our students meet with their guidance counselors regularly. They go over where they stand at multiple checkpoints. Students in Aspen can see how their credits lay out versus graduation requirements right there visually on the screen anytime they log in. There's GPA in real time, it's all there.
Yeah.
So but when they sit with their counselors as they're planning for the next year, here's where you are, here's where you're behind. So
My
there's an amnesia
comment
that
is, and
happens.
it could be controversial, but at some point, where is that line and when does it stop? That's really the end of the day. When we look at what we're dealing with year on, year out, at some point we have to say, if you're X amount of time behind and you're X amount, this is it. Like this is not an option anymore. and, you know, we talk about high set, we talk about these other options, at some point you have to have that tough conversation, not you personally, but as a system. Otherwise, we're just gonna keep carrying things, and then we wonder why it's not improving to the level that we want. So I'll speak for myself as a committee member. You bring the data to us and you show us this here, we create policies, we give people notice, and at some point, people are gonna either rise to the level of those expectations, or they're gonna have to have something else happen. And I feel like we as a system sometimes are afraid to have that tough conversation in public. And I'm telling you personally, as one member, I'm not afraid to have that conversation. If the data shows it, you know, I'm not afraid to have it. So as far as I'm concerned, let's try to get the numbers. The reason why I put this on is exactly what we just, you know, talked about. So I don't know if this has to go now back into the handbook, you know what I mean, in your program of studies, because I think this was taken out before. So if whatever it says winter of 2021, maybe we gotta do a supplement or something, or whatever it is. You know, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but just,
Well,
if we
just-
took it out,
I
we
think
should
it's
probably put it back.
I mean, it's just difference between, I don't see that as a part of the program of studies. These are supports for students when they don't succeed in the courses that are in the program of studies.
Yeah,
Go with the
And I think if we called it a course catalog, then maybe we wouldn't be having, you know, this.
Yeah, I think what we had at the
misunderstanding.
time was Dr. Malone saying at the ad building, we're gonna talk about what the kids are gonna take instead of not like a feel-good type of rah-rah type of thing. And in reality, we took things out of that document at that time, as far as I recall. And my only point is, we have to show those kids and the families, this is what their options are at the high school. And if we don't show them, how do they know what the, like, where that line is, or what, you know, it says here 1 to 6, like, that should be in there. Like, that should be in to know if you're this far behind somewhere, they gotta know. That's all I'm saying. I'm not telling you have to, I just think we had that conversation, and I would rather have it be out in the open instead of it. It made it seem at the time, 4 months ago, in the spring, that we didn't have as many issues that we're gonna need this. And now, we obviously do, based on a number of things. So when we see the data, maybe come back to us, and, you know, that's just my take on that. But any other questions for Mr. Damaris? All right, thank you very much. And last but not least, I believe it's last, no? The alternative school assignment. I think we kind of hit that with what you did, so we can just, unless anybody has anything on that, I think we can skip that. Mrs. Ponce, is that okay with you?
Yep, that's exactly what they've talked about in
Yeah.
the process.
And so the last, mental health services, I don't know who wants to present on this.
I will.
Okay.
As a district, we've been using the Choose Love curriculum. That's been something that this is our 3rd year. Through the pandemic, the program themselves, they've changed up and added more lessons to address pandemic needs. For example, so a lot of it is embracing this brand new world we're in, and a lot of post-traumatic growth SEL lessons for our students. And that's happening throughout the district. At the end of each character trait, we celebrate those characters with our students. Right now, we're going to be celebrating courage on November 12th, which I'm really excited about. I just really have to quickly add, I was in elementary school today, and I heard one of the teachers speaking to the little boy about utilizing his brave breaths. And that's exactly what the SEL curriculum teaches the kids, is to utilize the brave breaths, you know, to calm down their breathing when they're overwhelmed, and remind them. So I was really excited and figured I'd share that with you all, because it's nice to see in action. So we celebrate all of these character traits as a district and unify our district in that, which is amazing to see. Where you might have a kiddo in elementary, middle, and high school, and they're all talking about the same type of topic, or in our superheroes of courage on the 12th. We're also, all of the school adjustment counselors and some of the guidance counselors, they were all trained in the MARC, trained the trainer model, which is the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center. And now some of the school adjustment counselors created videos as well too, to now teach the teachers the curriculum. So all of our students in K through 12 will be receiving the MARC curriculum on anti-bullying. which is a great tool as well too. We're also going to be screening the signs of suicide screening throughout the district in grades 6 and 10. We were supposed to do this before the year of the pandemic, but we had to put it on hold. So we're going to be screening from January on. Our students. Schools and at our middle schools, we had to do a shift in our advisory to really support our students where they were at right now. To include sections in our advisory to teach some social skills, community building, implement our Choose Love curriculum in there as well as with SEL lessons, as well as the MARC curriculum as well too, just to reteach a lot of the social skills, really, if you will, during that time frame. Our community partners are still a big part of our schools. We continue to build that rapport and that bridge with our community partners, where we're letting them know this is what we're doing, this is where we're lacking potentially, where they're always able to provide us the support that we need, which has been tremendous as well too. You mentioned the drumming. We brought the drumming to 6 of our schools, which was pretty amazing to see if you're able to walk through our schools and seeing that. So that's through our partnerships with our communities as well. So we have some of our community partners, they're offering individual counseling to our students in all of our schools. We also have some community partners who are coming in and running groups as well too. That's something that we're looking to grow even more.
Every week, groups are every week, or?
So right now, yeah, groups are every week. We're looking to grow that even more, where I've tasked some of our community partners with asking, do they have any dynamic clinicians who are able to offer these skills without the kids knowing that they're in counseling. So hoping to hear back and getting some feedback from our community partners. We have one of our clinicians who's now starting, she just gave me the flyer for it, movement therapy. Which will be empowering our 5th grade girls in our school. We're piloting it there, just really thinking outside of the box and just doing some therapy strategies and supporting our kids in these different ways. Our school adjustment counselors have continued to work with our kids individually, providing the supports they need, continue to provide referrals to outside agencies. They're running groups on a regular basis, whether it's lunch bunch groups or groups throughout the day, just social skills, coping skills, identify feelings, you name it, just really looking at the need of what is happening and then offering the groups to that. Prior to the school year, we had a training for all of our school adjustment counselors. We partnered up with Mindwise and Riverside Trauma, and they came in and they did a training on psychological first aid to support our SACs, just because they're offering this psychological first aid to everyone, just giving them some more tools. And so we're going to continue to support our staff with giving them the tools that they need to be able to support our students and families.
Yeah, I think one of the important things you just raised, Mrs. Costa, was supporting your staff, because that was going to lead me to my question. How's your staff holding up in transition from the shutdown to the opening?
Yeah, I mean, and I think Ms. Shaw mentioned it's been a challenging year.
Yes.
One of the things that we just had in our PD as well was we just had Jessica Minahan to come in to talk a lot about that. Just to talk about just supporting them and being able to continue on as well too, because it has been tougher year than usual, which I'm actually really grateful that we were able to add those additional SACs right before this pandemic as well too, because that's been a tremendous support.
I can only imagine how challenging it must be, because it's been like a tectonic shift in throughout this pandemic of everything. It's just crazy. Everything's turbulently turned over. That being said, I'm really happy with the Choose Love curriculum and the themes set forth in that. I'm glad to work on values like courage and truth and honesty and all of that, and justice. It's just compassion. It's so darn important. It really is. So I want to thank you for all your work. You're a former colleague and a treasured colleague, and so I know what you're bringing to the table for these counselors. Thumbs up.
So I think we heard from multiple people that the need is greater now than it was, last year, whatever. It grows every year, and this is even more. When I look at look at equity across the district, and we had that chart that I've always been banging the drum on of how many people are at each school, how many students, how many SACs, what they do, and trying to have uniformity as close as we can. What does that look like across for the SACs? We added some. Is there a science behind why we have like 3 at his school, 2 at my school? And what do they do? What is the requirements for them?
So at each middle school, there is a SAC assigned to a grade level, if you will, right? So which is about 200 and something students per roughly. I think initially we were trying to get a 250-to-1 ratio, and that was regular ed type classrooms, type schools. We're in inner city. We have a lot of needs. So I know that those numbers they're great numbers that we were able to use as a ratio for supports. I think that our numbers are pretty close to that throughout the
Depends on the
district.
size of the school.
Right.
But I will say the largest school, like all the middle schools have 1 per grade level.
Right.
And the larger elementary schools have 2, usually 2 SACs. In most of those, I think all the elementary schools have them, depending on the size. Although we have a couple of smaller elementary schools that, as we know, I think that I know that what you're thinking, that some principals brought to the table and asked for additional staffing. And they were granted those positions, but we're looking at need, right? I think that equal is not the same for everybody. Depending on the school, like a school like Fonseca, their need is going to be much greater than maybe Spencer more or less. And I'm looking at what we see as far as SAC services and needs. So we have to staff them accordingly.
So when you look, I think you've done this before, maybe we can get an updated sheet of all the counselors and, the other piece that I think is an issue in my mind is the role of a guidance counselor versus a school adjustment counselor and which person can do which. And I think sometimes we get like pigeonholed into, that's not my thing, but a counselor is a counselor. Like there's certain things that they should be able to do, but when you look at equity, priorities, some things are, in a lot of ways, the school adjustment counselor, crisis counselor, dealing with some more serious things might be more important. All jobs are important, but we have to balance it and to see, do we need more guidance? So the 250-to-1 ratio, is that the counselor, but is it in a tough environment, is 250-to-1 too high? Is it unrealistic? So I'd like to get a report on that to the committee. And the other one that's always been a stickler for me is when we have the counselors are in the admin union, and then we have certified counselors, professionals, doing lunch duty all day, or not all day, but throughout that time. What a waste of money and resources. That's just an editorial, but I can't stand that because they're probably doing 6 different things at once. Oh, sorry, little Johnny's having a difficult time, but I got to go do lunch duty. Or if I don't, and I can't, then the admin's got to fill in, and it just creates a nightmare. So I would like to get a report on the uniformity of what's going on with that, and if we need to hire people to do the other duties, then whatever, let's come up with a plan. But I don't think it should be, that school over there, their counselors don't do lunch duty, but I happen to work at a school where I do. Like, how is that fair? How is that equitable? So if we can get a report to kind of lay that out.
I mean, I'll get you absolutely a report. I will say, I'm not going to sit here and lie. Our counselors do lunch duty because it's a staffing issue, right? So I agree, we have to look at a plan and maybe hire more paras or whatever to support with those duties to relieve them. The thinking behind doing some lunch duties, I don't agree that they should do, if you have 4 lunches in a building, that they should be assigned to all 4 lunches. Maybe they're assigned to 1 lunch because we want them to develop relationships outside of the formalized relationships, but not to tie them up for 4 hours doing lunch. You're right. So So, yes.
Yeah, and there's a difference between doing lunch duty to build rapport with students and having the responsibility of lunch duty to make sure nobody's doing things they shouldn't. So I work in a school and it's frustrating sometimes because I'm watching everything that's going on and then somebody else sits down with a kid, which is good. A counselor can do that, but if they're supposed to be watching the other half of the calf and I'm, so it makes it tough. So I think you understand the point, but when you look at the number and you lay it out, there's probably going to be a case where the schools that don't have them or have them in it, they don't have the other resources. So on that same chart, we have how many instructional folks do we have, how many paras do we have. So when you look across the chart, it might not be the counselor issue, but it's going to be, they
Filling in
got
a
6
hole.
other bodies that they could use and this school doesn't. So for what it's worth, I think it's good to see. And if we have to add, we have money.
Yep.
That's the good part, and today's day and age. So, and I really wanted to talk about the therapist was one of them. And we talked about that earlier. So, the sooner we get that in, the better. Any other questions?
So,
Anybody else have anything to add?
I do
Sure.
have one
Yeah.
question. The evolve piece, I'm just wondering if we bring that to the full committee, because we're gonna, as a committee, I would say, we're gonna have to start thinking about, we're gonna have to figure out if we move forward with applying for year 3 will require expansion. We are maxed out at expansion right now at Durfee, so we'll have to figure out a plan for moving forward.
Yep, I couldn't agree with you more. I would recommend maybe over the next month come up with your own rationale for that, because we can't build another, the space is limited there. So
Right.
I would say maybe when does it have to be in? Did it say in May, or you
Well,
start doing it now?
We need to confirm to reapply. The application opened November, and they would like to know our commitment to reapply now.
So November is like now.
Yes. So
And-
they would, yeah.
I would say to bring it to the committee. I don't think we need to take a vote, but bring it as soon as you
I
can.
can add it to the agenda.
If you can't put it on, for this one, then we're going to be in December.
Next
I
Monday.
could.
So if
I could
it's-
add it for Monday.
Yeah, if you think you can do it, I'm in favor of it, but we can't we can't say we're gonna apply for something that we can't deliver.
Let's do
Exactly.
it.
And then when we do have money, I don't know if I mentioned that we have money, but if we're looking at other space, pre-K, all this other stuff, is there other, things that we can do? But I wouldn't want to apply for a grant and then say we're gonna, 2 years from now, we can't find a place. So I do appreciate everybody's time. It took a little longer, but I think this is a good meeting to have. We're gonna try to have quarterlies, so it won't be a long presentation. It might be an update, what your needs are, look at the budgets, and I do appreciate the work everybody's doing. So thank you very much. Motion
Thank you.
to adjourn, seconded.
Motion?
All in favor. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.